What's going on, Dolphins? It is your boy Dillon, and I'm making this video because I got some good comments and stuff that I want to discuss a little bit. Some good conversation and questions in the comment section, so I want to get to that because I do like answering your guys' questions and just, you know, bringing some of the conversations, even if it's not, you know, questions, just the conversations that we have to, you know, videos. So this is like a fan Q&A kind of thing going on right now. So first off, I'd like to start with Funky Monkeys. You know, he's been a subscriber for a while now. He's pretty often in the comment section. He says, hey, I've been off YouTube, so it's been a while. He then goes on to say, we suck. The O-line sucks, and the defense deserves credit, with the Pats holding them to 7 points for the first half. It was 13, actually, to be accurate. It was 13 points. Yes, they do deserve credit, but let's also make sure that we have that in full context. The Pats were doing, you know, some their game plan was kind of conservative. They did get helped out on a couple of occasions from the refs. And, you know, again, after the defense got, you know, worn down, they started getting gashed and gashed and gashed. So, you know, all that, you know, it's not the defense's fault that they were, you know, winded and gassed at the end. Obviously, it's a lot to do with, well, a lot of different things. Anyway, can't do anything when you're on the field for 2 times the time of the offense. Absolutely. And then he says, I'll be honest with Minka. He is in the wrong there. You shouldn't request a trade in your second fucking year. And he calls him an impatient bastard. Well, okay. I mean, I get it, right? I understand there's a lot of people that are upset with the players. Again, I don't think that the players at all should be, you know, to blame here, because it's not their fault that they were put in this position. It's this front office, this coaching staff, and what have you that have built the team like this. They have built it to be, you know, bad. They've literally built this team to be bad, so that way we can go get. And Stephen Ross, through all the information we have now, Stephen Ross has made it clear we are getting a quarterback, right? Which actually we'll talk about in the next comment a little bit more. But so, you know, look, anyway, let me just get to my response. First of all, I was like, it said, welcome back. I was like, yeah, I don't agree with your perspective on Minka. I mean, I get it. You know, I understand people are upset because you know, all these things, right? You shouldn't like quit. Like, you know, TD said he thinks that he's being not competitive. I disagree. I think it shows more of the competitive nature, that you don't want to be and waste your prime years on a team that's going to be bad. Like, anyway, so I this is what I said. He's smart enough to see that this franchise will only be hoping and praying to be competitive by the time his prime years are up. Xavier Howard expressed the same concerns, even though he's bought in for now. My guess is this trend of historic failure and or an injury scare will change his mind, right? So, I mean, I gave you his quotes, right? And, you know, he said it. He said it himself. He was like, yeah, you know, I do worry that, and I do think about it. These are my prime years, you know, and he's like, my big thing is just staying healthy. If he has some sort of injury scare at all, and, you know, one of these games, I'm telling you, there's going to be a switch that flips with him. And he's going to be like, dude, nah, this shit is not worth it. It's not worth it, right? So it's, you know, and so it's not worth it for these players to want to be here. Or any players to want to come. You know, I mean, Clowney didn't want to come here. A lot of the players that left, there were even talks that John Denny, you know, retired or whatever because he didn't want to be a part of this either, right? So, and he didn't say that, of course, and there's no real, you know, corroborating evidence for that, but I mean, you know, it's a reasonable thing. These players should not be blamed for being put in a position that they didn't have any control over. And furthermore, they should be, you know, they should be given a break when they want to get, at the very least, when they want to get out of this mess, especially for young ascending players that, you know, want to have a chance to have, you know, good careers and not have their careers ruined by this, you know, trashy, bullshit, selfish approach that the Dolphins are taking. Anyway, Matthew Jenkins then chimed in and says, nobody likes quitters, but it's hard not to quit on a team like this. And I hear you, man. I do. Like, I absolutely get it. It is, and it's tough. It really is. But see, that's the thing, right? So that's the difference between me and a lot of these other fans, right? So, and look, I don't want to, I try not to get, because we all love the Dolphins, right? Like, so I don't want to try, that's the one uniting thing I would think amongst us, is that, you know, we all love the Dolphins. And so, you know, I don't want to get into this big battle about, you know, who's a real Dolphins fan. But honestly, though, for me, what it means to be a real Dolphins fan is not only am I going to not blindly just follow what they say, I am going to critically analyze what they do. I'm going to voice my disagreements, but I'm also going to push to try and do something and get things fixed. And that's why, you know, I think that, and we'll actually get into this a little bit. Well, I'll just say it now. Look, the main problem with this organization at this point is its leadership. And that is primarily Stephen Ross. And then, you know, the front office and the coaching staff are just an extension of him, right? Gase got fired in large part because Ross told him he wanted to tank this season to go get a quarterback, and he, you know, had the balls and the integrity to say no. And, you know, I'm not going to do that. I'm trying to build something here. I think I'm on the right track, and, you know, I'm not going to do that. So, you know, this starts with Ross. But at the same time, for me, I want to do something more. And that's why I created the petition to, because, you know, Ross is not going to sell the team willingly, right? He's not going to, you know, he's a stubborn old fool, and he's just going to sit there and try and cling on and foolishly blunder his way through to more disaster, hoping that he can somehow manage to figure something out along the way. He's proven he can't do it. I don't trust that he can do it going forward, especially after a lot of the things that we've seen recently. And so, look, that's why I made the petition. If you guys, you know, are upset about this stuff, I feel you. I do. So join me in that fight, really, because it's the only way. If the fans come together and say, dude, we want you to sell the team as owner, as majority owner. We don't want you to be making these decisions anymore. We don't trust your football aptitude, let alone, and you know, that just off of that and his record off of that, let alone the despicable way and abhorrent way he's supporting Donald Trump and trying to help him get reelected, just so that way, you know, he can get more tax cuts, so that way he can continue to enrich himself. So, you know, sign the petition. The link is going to be in the description box of all of my videos going forward until we grow big enough and we get it done. I'm actually gonna, you know, fight and try and do something substantive that you know, could potentially, you know, get a change in this organization that'll hopefully lead us in the right direction, you know. Anyway, so real quick, Mike Pellegrino added in, Minka knew that this team is a farce and the coaches are incompetent. Can't blame him for that. Clowney didn't want any part of this mess either. That's absolutely right. All right, so continuing on, the next thing that I want to, or the next question, this is actually a question from Kiss the Fin. And so this is a good question, so I'm glad he's asking me this. What could the Dolphins do to make this better, in my opinion, without firing our front office? Not what we should have done, but what can we do now? Okay, absolutely fair question, right? I have talked about a lot about how, and I just mentioned it, about how, you know, I think it starts with Stephen Ross. He needs to go. I think, you know, everything starting with the firing of Adam Gase has been, you know, just one massive disaster. But it is also fair to say that this is where we're at, and what could this regime do differently, right? So I did give you guys my perspective on how the previous draft, for example, could have been handled, right? And the offseason, I wouldn't have done the purge. I would not have gotten rid of Ryan Tannehill. I would not have traded for Rosen. I would have taken the best offensive lineman in the draft in Garrett Bradbury in the first round, a D lineman in round 2, and Will Grier in round 3. Okay, quick recap of how I would have done all that. So, going forward, I mean, honestly, this season is pretty much in the books. You know, as shitty as that is to say, and as, you know, as written in stone as not written in stone can be, right? So obviously we still have to see. I find it, you know, literally there would have to be some kind of miracle if we are to win a game, in my estimation, as it stands right now. So, you know, I mean, I think it's pretty clear that we're going to end up with the number 1 overall pick. And it's unfortunate because we're going to most likely end up as not just an 0-16 team, but unfortunately we'll, you know, we have a high probability of ending as the worst team that the NFL has ever seen. So, you know, I mean, I've been saying it, there's nothing that we can do about that either, right? Especially as fans. I mean, all we can do is sit here and watch, right? The only thing that substantively we can do is try and push for some kind of like legitimate change that will attack the root issues, hence the petition, right? I mean, and even the battles between, like, you know, putting Rosen out there, because there's the argument that, you know, how can you really even evaluate him behind this line, and how can you really even evaluate any of these guys with as bad as we're expected to be going forward, and with as bad as we were in the first 2 games, right? So because you're just such a trash team, just getting your ass handed to you left and right by these other far, you know, higher caliber teams, that, you know, it's really difficult to even evaluate any of the guys on the roster. And hence why I think it is very plausible that next year we end up having a massive turnover yet again. They've kind of created this perpetual cycle. Not to mention, you know, toxic environment. Nobody wants to come here, blah, 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 blah. All of that stuff. So, you know, I mean, for this year, it's the what could the Dolphins do? I mean, I'm not really sure that there is anything that they could do this year. I think this year is about as written up and buttoned up as it can be without actually being, you know, 100% fact written in history, right? So next year, I mean, from my perspective, again, I mean, first and foremost, I would not seek to be big spenders in free agency. Will you have to get guys in free agency with as many holes as there are on this team? Absolutely. Do you have the cap space to do it? Yes. But should you be going after like these really high-priced free agents and stuff? I mean, I don't know exactly what they mean when they say that they're going to be aggressive in free agency, but generally that's what it means. And especially when it comes to a team that has a ton of cap space. And you saw the Browns do it, right? When we traded them Jarvis Landry and stuff. And the contract that they signed him to. OBJ and some blah, 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 right? So, but look, I mean, they're stacked with talent and they're kind of just right now. So there's no promise that even all of that, people are trying to make this argument that this can work in the NFL. Tanking, first of all, tanking as a process is abhorrent just to begin with, but, you know, I mean, the game, you can't compare the NBA and the MLB, baseball and basketball to the NFL, to football. They're just vastly different sports. Football is far more brutal. There's way less games in a season than either of those. The whole structure of the game is different. Those are sports where you actually, especially basketball, because the team's smaller, it's not a lot less brutal and so on and so forth, that one player actually can make a difference. We have a million holes on this roster, right? So They should not be big spenders in free agency, but apparently that's what they're going towards. Also, for me, when it comes to the draft, I mean, we already know that they're going to take a quarterback high. Stephen Ross essentially mandated it. So, but I wouldn't. I would take a quarterback in round 3. And I would take all of that draft capital that you have, and I would just overhaul that offensive line. So you have 3 first-round picks. If 2 of those happen to be in the top 10 because the Steelers end up being not as good, I mean, you know, a lot of people are like, oh, the Steelers are going to fall off now, and maybe they will. But even still, like, the worst predictions I see from people are like, oh, they'll still get 5 or 6 wins, right? With Big Ben out and, you know, blah, 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 right? I mean, that's bottoming out for the average, you know, an average NFL team. We're probably going to bottom out at 0-16 this year and the worst team in NFL history, just by comparison. And like, so if you do have, like, let's say we have the number 1 overall pick, and then let's say, you know, a top 10 pick because of the Steelers, a lot of people would, you know, say this is crazy, but I would take the 2 best offensive linemen in the draft with those picks, because other people are going to be happy to take the quarterbacks when you pass on them and some other positions, you know, so people will take those. The Dolphins could easily get the top 2 offensive linemen in this draft. And then with that 3rd first-round pick, I mean, there probably wouldn't be where the Texans are, you know, the pick from the Texans, they're expected to do better, you know, over the course of the season. And so that pick is expected to not be as valuable. So, you know, mid to later round 1. So you might not, you know, I know it would be crazy to take 3 offensive linemen in the first round, but if there was another first round, you know, if there was a player, I mean, why not? I know it would be crazy, and that would certainly be unprecedented, but so is what the Dolphins are doing right now. Everything that they've done up to this point in accumulation is unprecedented. And so, yeah, would you need something drastic to counter it? Yeah, so why not? And that would show that you really are vested, but that's never going to happen, right? And even if you didn't take a 3rd offensive lineman, take what? So maybe a defensive lineman, an edge rusher, right? Get a stud edge rusher. So 2 first-round offensive linemen and a stud pass rusher. Boom. That's what I would do for round 1. And round 2, then I would go maybe, let's say, cornerback, and to pair opposite Xavier Howard, and maybe like wide receiver. Honestly, because I don't expect that Albert Wilson's going to be on the team for too much longer. Devontae Parker, I expect to go. Preston Williams could rise up and end up being the number 1 receiver. But Kenny Stills is already gone. Jakeem Grant is here, but they do technically have an out in his contract starting next year. And, you know, he can't do everything. Him and Preston Williams can't do everything. So maybe another wide receiver in round 2 of this draft. So honestly, I mean, and things could change, but right now, if you're asking me what they can do, don't be huge spenders in free agency next year. Definitely, you know, you know, you got to find the diamonds in the rough. So what does that mean, right? You got to find guys that are like, you know, in their mid-20s or whatever, that have some proven production, right? Some good, you know, decent playing time with decent production, that are going into free agency that a team might, you know, be able to afford to let go, that you can get on a cheap, that's not on like superstar status, right? That you can get on the cheap to help, you know, plug some of these holes. But in round 1, take the top 2 offensive linemen, take a stud pass rusher with that 3rd pick in the 1st round. And then in round 2, get yourself a corner or maybe even a safety at this point, because I don't expect Rashad Jones to be here much longer either. Either a corner or a safety. You should put Bobby McCain back in the slot. And then, you know, maybe either a wide receiver or another, you know, like if you take a corner, then get, you know, double down in the secondary and get a safety, or vice versa. You know, or a receiver would be good there too. I mean, there's so many holes on this roster, and I expect that they're going to end up creating more. So, I mean, it's super hard to say. But that right now, that's what I got for you. And so I hope that adequately answers your guys' questions and what have you. And so, like I said, I really love having these conversations, and this is what it's about, right? So the first thing that my channel is about is speaking the truth, giving the facts, giving a perspective that's totally different than a lot of people, and trying to get, you know, for one, bring everybody that does agree with me together. People who are on the fence, I want to help to convince those people and to get them to you know, put the big picture together and to be able to see it for themselves, and to join the coalition so we can get the change that we want. And then for the people who are just, you know, honestly, either too ignorant, too stupid, or just too delusional and naive and want to live in the you know, alternate reality, if they're just stubborn enough to stay stuck there and not open-minded enough and willing enough to acknowledge facts and stuff like that, and logic and reason, then I can't help those people. But for everybody else, you know, I want to bring us together so we can, as fans, affect some positive change into the team that we love. And then the second thing is, you know, now that I am actually starting to build that coalition and actually getting a, you know, a decent subscriber base and so on and so forth, now it's, you know, we can really start talking about how to fix it and whatnot. And so for us, I mean, I just gave you an idea on how the Dolphins can fix it, right? Some things that they could do going into this off season. This season, I think, is done and whatever. We do need, though, to fix our entire power structure in this organization, starting with Stephen Ross. So one more time, I have a petition. I created a petition to get Stephen Ross to sell the team as majority owner. And so if you back that idea, sign that, and we can do it together, and we can make that change. Anyway, that's all I got for you guys. So that's how I'm going to end it. I'm going to get up out of here. I hope you guys enjoy my videos. If you do, make sure you hit the subscribe button. Make sure you hit the like button. Make sure you hit the bell if you want to get the alerts. Leave your questions, comments, and concerns down in the comment section. And of course, as always, make sure you follow me on Twitter at Dillon Tartaro. And with that, I am out. I'll see y'all soon. Fins up.